A lot of albums came out this year. I don't have time to make a video on all of them, but I did want to talk about what I listened to this year and what I thought about it. Some albums I have more to say about than others. If I missed any albums, if you think that I would like an album that is not on this list, please let me know in the comments. I can't possibly listen to everything that came out. Also, not all of these are pop punk. Most of them are either pop punk or emo. Some are just, you know, you could call them pop rock. These are just things that I listen to as someone who generally gravitates towards music and the scene. All right, let's call this category the disappointments or not a fan of. There are only 3. I don't like to talk about albums that I think sucked, but these are 3 that I was looking forward to and just didn't hit home for me for whatever reason. This is in no particular order. First off, the album I Went to Hell and Back by As It Is. They sound a little bit too big this time around, cheesy even. Not a fan of the lyrics. There are some real eye rollers for me on here. IDGAF is the eye roller, the big one. But also the single, like the most streamed song on there, I Wish It Was 2003, is also a snoozer for me. I just don't think this is Patty's best work, and I'm not an As It Is hater by any means. I loved actually everything before this. I'm a fan of the Great Depression and OK, and the first one, and then that, Never Happy Ever After? Yeah, jeez. I own that album, I can't remember its name. But I do like that album a lot, and I've loved As It Is. This is their first miss for me. Next up, this one hurts to say, but I mean, I think they'll get over it. It's called Brave Faces, Etc. by the band Spanish Love Songs. Brave Faces Everyone was one of my favorite releases that year. I think that's a near perfect album. This is just a reimagining of every song, and there's not a single song on here that I think deserved a reimagining. I only pre-ordered this album on CD because it looked like on the Pure Noise Record website that it included both the original and the reimagined versions on here. It does not. It is just the reimagined versions. Kind of upset about that, but hey, Spanish Love Songs, I love you guys so much. I'm still gonna pre-order your next record. I hope it comes out in 2023. Excited for that. Next, hot take alert. I did not like Belmont's album Aftermath. This is a huge miss for me. I expected a lot. I kind of liked their debut, self-titled, kind of liked their Reflections EP. I was hoping I would really latch on to their next release, but really I have to just come to accept that whatever is going on with the vocalist is just not for me. It sounds artificial in a way that I don't like. Even songs that people are praising, like Bowser's Castle, I just can't get into. Sadly, this is gonna fall. It's the last album in the disappointing category of the year for me. Let's move on. All right, what next? All right, this is the category of right in the middle. I at least liked these albums, but I'm not gushing about them. Again, no particular order. Knuckle Puck released an EP called Disposable Life. I think this EP is fine. Knuckle Puck continues to have a very weird flow and lyricism that I'm getting a little tired of. They're signed on to Pure Noise Records now, so there's probably a new album coming out next year. I'm gonna see them this spring. I'm stoked about that. Knuckle Puck puts on an amazing show, and you know, I'm a lifelong fan of Knuckle Puck, so even things that I think are just okay, that's only because I have such massive, unfair expectations of Knuckle Puck, which that's not their fault, that's me. State Champs released Kings of the New Age. Been a little bored with State Champs lately, but I think this is another solid release from them. Every release since Around the World and Back has kind of blended together for me. If you played me a song from any of those, I don't think I'd be able to tell you which album it's from. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, I'll let you decide there. But these guys have a sound that they've perfected, and I'll tell you what, these new songs sounded awesome when I saw them live a few weeks ago. And really, this is a technically sound album with really solid songs such as Just Sound. It's probably my favorite on the record. That said, I don't think I'm going to have any reason to revisit this album very often, if ever. I was really stoked for Young Culture's album this year. It's called You Had to Be There. It's hot off the press. It was just released. Unfortunately, just not for me. I don't vibe with this sound. It's like neon party pump that I think is punk. Neon party pop that I think is kind of tired. it seems like they have a growing fan base, and I think that's great. I'm certainly not saying they don't deserve the success that they're having, and I hope they continue to see success. This one was just not my cup of tea, although I still think it's good and has good songs. Next up is Turnover's release this year, Myself in the Way. I wasn't expecting to be blown away by this album. I don't think I'm ever going to be blown away by another Turnover album, but it's a fun listen. I saw someone commented on my Turnover review that they think this album is romantic, and I totally agree. If you put Magnolia on a pedestal, you are going to be disappointed on this album, but I think it's a nice listen. I've come back to it a bunch of times since its release, even though it was just released. I have this one on vinyl. I'm glad I do, and I think I'm going to spin it for years to come, just like All Together, and I think it's going to be a grower.
All right, next, Sweet Tooth by Mom Jeans. I like this one better than Best Buds, but Mom Jeans still isn't my cup of tea. I get the appeal, but I've just never gotten into them. I think there's too many songs on here, and some of what I think were supposed to feel like big moments just fell a little flat, like the ending of Teeth. Just didn't work for me. This also has an unforgivable album cover, which makes me feel all right about cementing my decision on this album.
Next up, In Her Own Words released an album called Distance and Decay, their third full length. I've been an In Her Own Words fan since 2013, since the release of Everyone I Used to Trust, which is an amazing album. I liked when they had a little bit of a heavier sound, but when you can sing like the lead singer can, of course you're going to move towards showcasing what you can do. Unfamiliar was an amazing release. Steady Glow, I didn't like at first, but it really grew on me, and I think that's what's going to happen on this album. I'm seeing them next week. I think I'm going to get a more appreciation for these newer songs when I hear them live.
Next, we have Pup's newest release, The Unraveling of Pup the Band. This is an album that I was highly anticipating. They've consistently put out stellar releases, and even though this album is really good, it just pales in comparison to their previous work. I think this is just another case of me shooting myself in the foot by having such high expectations for this album.
Next, the Tiny Moving Parts self-titled. They were short-lived on Hopeless Records. They released kind of out of nowhere, weird debacle, like came out on Apple Music a month before the actual release date, so I got to hear this super early, pre-ordered the vinyl. It's not going to be here until like March next year. And I've listened to it a few times. I think it's better than Breathe, not quite as good as Celebrate. Weirdly, the song that's the earworm in my head is Decibel, which isn't even my favorite song, but that's the one that's stuck in my head. The lyrics are strange, but not bad. The instrumentation it blows me away, and I think all these guys are great musicians and amazing guitarists.
Stand Atlantic released an album called F.E.A.R. I was surprised. This was my favorite album released by them so far. I preemptively judged it on the album cover that I do not like at all. But me thinking it's their best release is not super high praise. I haven't been super fond of any of their releases so far, but I mean, this is it's a solid record. There's some good songs on here like Molotov and Van Gogh, but there's also songs on here that I can't stand, particularly the ones with the two features, Death Wish and Don't Talk, but also the song XO. It's also got a very weird closer, joke song, whatever. That's fine, I guess. But the vocals are great, as always, and I've seen a lot of people say that this is one of their favorite releases of the year. I'm not going to put them down for thinking that. I just feel like I'm missing out on something, so oh well.
Last on here, The Dangerous Summer released an album called Coming Home. I'm not the first to say this, but if The Dangerous Summer could get out of their own freaking way, they'd have the world at their taking. They keep releasing great music, but I hear that the members are just a mess and the live act is a mess. I'm not judging them, but every album for me from them feels like it's one step away from being amazing, and I think that describes their career pretty well as well. This next group of albums flirted with being in my top 10, some more than others, but they're all right around there, almost top 10 worthy. Starting with Carly Cosgrove's See You in Chemistry. Their shtick is Drake and Josh related names and songs, and most of it's not about that at all. Super fun, emo listen. Highlights here for me are the lyrics. I don't have a ton to say about this album. It's great. It's Midwest emo. If you like that, you're gonna love this album. I expect big things from this band. Next up, Matt Kerekes released an album called Nova. Personally, this is my favorite release of his to date. It's got some real headbangers on here like Introducing and Famous Actor and Art of Living. Matt's one of my favorite vocalists, so like if he writes lyrics and songs that are well put together, then it's pretty much gonna be an automatic thumbs up from me, and this is no exception. Got to see him live, by the way, and he freaking crushed it. Don't miss out if he comes through your city. Next up,
Teen Suicide released an album called Honeybee Table at the Butterfly Feast this year. I've had mixed feelings about this band over the years. There are songs that I love and there's songs that I hate. Can't decide where this album falls in my ranking of their discography, but I will say that some of my favorite work of theirs is on here, particularly Get High, Breathe Underwater, number 3. I think that's a beautiful song. It's almost a tearjerker. The song, get ready, this is a long title. It's called It Was Probably Nothing, but for a moment there, I lost all sense of feeling. The name of that song makes me roll my eyes when I hear the title, but when I actually listen to the song, it really moves me. The song Complaining in Dreams really cracks me up. I honestly don't know if that was the intention, but it does anyway, and I think this whole album would be in my top 10 if it wasn't for a completely unlistenable song on here called Violence, Violence, and for the fact that I think maybe this album overstays its welcome a little bit. But this is a song that I really like to get lost in. I like to turn it up super loud and just fade away into the couch and enjoy it. And if you haven't given this album a listen, I think you should.
Hate me all you want. I think this album is amazing. Magnolia Park released an album called Baku's Revenge, and I think it is excellent. For whatever reason, this has what that Young Culture album lacked. Just for me, I got more out of Baku's Revenge. You should give this album a chance. It's not going to be for everyone, I know that. But specifically this song, I Should Have Listened to My Friends, is great, and I like how this album opens as a middle finger to all of their haters. I am not one of those people. I think this band is great. I think they're going to blow up, and I expect great things from this band in the future as well. Next up, probably not a band or album you expected to see on this list, but the Goo Goo Dolls released an album called Chaos in Bloom. I have always been a massive Goo Goo Dolls fan. When I was 9 or 10 or I don't know, young, Dizzy Up the Girl and those 2 songs from Treasure Planet were on my iPod on repeat all the time. So I've always had a soft spot for the Goo Goo Dolls, and their last 4 or 5 albums haven't really grabbed me at all. But Chaos in Bloom, I think, is their best work in a while. I don't know if I'm alone in thinking that. It doesn't sound like they're trying super hard to make the rock ballads, power pop rock, whatever you want to call it, those ballads that like they're famous for. I really like the opener, and I think War is also really solid. John continues to be one of my favorite vocalists of all time, like across every genre. It's probably because I discovered them so young that I'm just attached. If you ever like the Goo Goo Dolls and stop listening to them, like give it a shot. Maybe you'll like it as much as I did. Oso Oso released an album called Sore Thumb, which has a very interesting story behind it. Apparently they had the demos like recorded, and then the producer or sound engineer died. So all the lead singer did was mix and master those demos, and the result is Sore Thumb. That raw, unpolished sound fits it really well. I really like this album a lot. Oso Oso is, in my opinion, a very underrated band. Basking in the Glow is one of my favorite releases in the past 5 years. This album doesn't quite hit the heights that Basking in the Glow did. It's a really engaging listen for me, and I think this is pretty impressive that it sounds this great given the story behind it. I don't think this album's going to be a hit, but I do think this is a very special record, and you should give it a chance. I really loved it. Last in this category is the band Driveways. They released an album called Into the Past. Another year, another album from them. I love their sound. I like the guitar work. I think they've nailed their sound. I think it's time that they do try something a little new. I think that'll serve them well if they evolved a little bit, but for now, they're just getting more and more polished, and I've liked every release that they've come out with, and it seems like they're coming out with releases all the time. They're due for a breakout. People online talk about this band. They're like the not so secret indie pop punk darlings. I think a lot of people like this band, and I'm no exception. I think it's good.
The next album on this list is one that a lot of people are going to be upset that's not on my top 10. Honestly, I think this is my number 11, and that is No Pressure's LP. It's self-titled, and this is Parker Cannon's side project. They kind of released this out of nowhere, and it's short and it's sweet and aggressive, and your enjoyment of this record kind of hinges on your feelings about Parker Cannon's vocals. I happen to really like his harsher vocals, so this album was a real hit for me. Big Man, Save Your Spot, and One Way Trip are my favorites on here. Honestly, this would be number 11, and maybe even on another day it would sneak into my top 10.
Okay, up next, the top 10. My favorite releases of the year. These are in order. First, I do want to do some honorable mentions that aren't albums. Stay Inside released an album called Blight. If you love hardcore, post-punk, whatever you want to call it, just a heavier sound in general, spookier sound, if I may say so, you will like this album a lot. This is a very underrated band. This EP it's short and sweet and powerful and emotive. I think, yeah, if you like that sound, you're gonna like this album. Also, a band released an EP. Spotify calls it an album. I don't think so. It's called Homesick by the band Hunny. Their previous album, Yes, 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 or whatever it's called, was also amazing, but they really have three excellent songs on this EP in Homesick, JFK, and Loser. The whole EP is good, but those three are like, I feel like those are gonna be huge. I have a feeling their next album is gonna be really, really, really good. So keep an eye on Hunny. Lastly, I wanna talk about Heart Attack Man. They released a song called Loud and Clear that blew me away. It's my favorite generic acoustic song in a long time. This song is a heartbreaker for me. Check it out if you love Heart Attack Man. And if you don't love Heart Attack Man, what are you doing? All right, top 10. This is in order, starting with number 10, Waiting for Your Colors by the band Chief State. This album was so slept on. It's such a fun blast of pop punk. I made a whole video on this album, which got no views at all, which, you know, it's fine. Check that review out. Check this album out. Give Chief State some love. The song on here that's a real standout is called Sakura. Might be the best pure pop punk song of the year. Next album, Midwest Emo to a T. It's called I'm Scared That's All There Is by Ben Quad. If you haven't heard this album, get to it. The opener, Blood for the Blood God, is like everything I love about Midwest Emo, with like gang vocals and awesome guitar work. Other standout here is the closer, Joan of Hill. I think everyone watching this video, if you like emo, will love this album. It's amazing. Next up, Action Adventure released an album called Imposter Syndrome. I'm glad there is a fresh new face tied to this sound. This is also an album that I have an entire video on that. If you haven't heard the album, go listen to it. If you haven't watched the video, go watch that, because I talk in depth on this band and this album. That's my number 8. Number 7. No surprise that this album is going to be on a pop punk kids list. The Wonder Years, Hum Goes On Forever. Of course it's going to be in the top 10. This is like another step in the direction that Wonder Years have been going. I think it's much better executed than Sister Cities was. Lyricism is probably their best to date. And if you haven't watched the documentary on the making of this album, go do that. You will get a huge boost of appreciation for what the Wonder Years goes through in each album cycle. They are masters of their craft. There's a reason they're the biggest band in pop punk. And again, they release an excellent album. Number 6. I don't think anybody is going to put this album in their top 10, but I've got it at number 6. That is Born Without Bones' album, Dancer. It's their full-length debut on Pure Noise Records. And it's kind of an astonishment to me what's been going on this album. It seems like Pure Noise dumped a bunch of money into this album. Like, there's 3 well-produced music videos from this album. They have a bunch of variants of the record. Pure Noise bet it big on Born Without Bones. For some reason, it flopped. Some people will say it's because it's a bad album. I disagree wholeheartedly if you feel that way. I think this is their best work. It's as polished and well produced as they've ever sounded, but it fits them because they were so raw before that polishing them up it still leaves some jagged edges. There are some bangers on this record. I love the opening 3 tracks. I think they're excellent. Sometimes less is more, but most of the time I like when an album is really wordy. And even though some of the lyrics make me question my head, like the chorus of Exoskeleton, there are things, really smart couplets and lyrics, like in Fistful of Bees, that keep me coming back to this album a lot. I know it just came out, but this is a great record. I'm in love with the production on this record. I'm in love with the vocalist on this record, romantically. And I think this is a great, great album. Speaking of underrated, this album and band aren't going to be on anyone's radar. They have 410 listeners on Spotify. I only found them because I follow No Sleep Records on Instagram, and they announced the release in one post, and then I don't think they ever talked about them again. They don't have a physical release of this album. It is No Betters, the colors and all. I love the sound of this album. It's folky, it's relaxing. The singer has a really unique voice. This album sets a mood and it just knocks it out of the park. It's not going to be for everyone. I can see some people calling this album boring. I disagree, but I get that. And for some reason, this sound just really hits home for me. Baffling that they have like no listeners on Spotify. I don't know what the deal is with that. Check this album out. Like if you want to go for something a little different, something that's like vaguely related to pop punk, but really doesn't sound that way at all. Like the only relationship is that they're signed to No Sleep Records. Give this album a shot. You might just find that you like it. I certainly did. This album will be on a lot of people's top 10, and that's the album Little Green House by Anxious. What a debut. This just came out and surprised everyone. Probably a lot of people's favorite release of the year. I think this is a people pleaser of alternative music. It's heavy enough that people who like post-punk and hardcore and easycore and so, people that like stuff a little heavier are gonna get stuff out of it. But there's also like pop influenced moments here. Excellent songwriting that I think a lot of people from a lot of different genres and a lot of different musical preferences are gonna like this album. Anxious is primed to blow up. They've been touring their hearts out, and I think it's only a matter of time before success catches up to them, because they deserve it. And this release is a powerhouse. If you haven't heard it, gotta go check that out. I'm gonna say this about every record on the top 10, but this album, if you love pop punk and post-hardcore, you're gonna love this album. Next, the top 3. Pretty hard for me to determine which one I like more. I think they're all pretty different, and it'd probably change depending on the mood I'm in. But I've decided number 3 is going to be Hygiene by Drug Church. I think that the move towards more melodic elements suits this band really well. It's definitely going to make them more accessible. Whether you think that's a good thing or not, that's up to you. But for me, that was a huge plus for Drug Church. I do love Cheer a lot. This album I like even more, and I hope that Drug Church continues this sound, because I think they have some of the best lyrics in the game. These songs, Premium Offer and Detective Lieutenant, are just perfect songs in my opinion. If you get a chance to see them on tour, do not miss that show. At number 2, debut LP called Never Before Seen, Never Again Found. I released an out of focus video talking about this album in depth, but this is one of the most impressive debuts I've heard in a long time. Emotional album to listen to for me. The themes here are well realized. It could be this decade's Home Like No Place Is There. I just did a video about that album. I can see this album like being held to that regard. and I am so anxious to see Arm's Length's trajectory from here because they have so much hype behind them. I hope they take their time in their next release. I hope they tour and get tons of new fans. Almost was my album of the year, but I had to give the #1 spot to probably my most listened to album of the year, my favorite release by a narrow margin, but I think it's well deserved. That is Pool Kid's self-titled release. Released in July, caught me by surprise because I did not really like their previous work, but this album is borderline perfect for me. Pure emotion, plain and simple. You know, it's got everything I love about emo lyrics. It's specific, it's introspective, it's relatable, it's devastating, it's like darkly funny at times, and it just showcases my favorite things about this genre and this scene. I'm obsessed with the guitar work on here, specifically in the first 2 songs. I think if you aren't hooked by the first 2 songs, then maybe this album isn't for you. But those are like, it might be the best opening 2 songs I can think of. This album just blew me away, and I think it's gonna blow a lot of people away if you haven't given this album a chance. Please, please, please give it a listen. Pool Kids are like stars in the making. Even Paramore gave them a shout out, and they stuck that on the front cover of the packaging. Who wouldn't? Like, if Paramore shouts you out, you're gonna take advantage of that. Thank you for watching. I know I had more to say about some albums than others. Let me know in the comments what I got wrong. What did I forget to listen to? What didn't I mention? If you like this video at all, please drop a like, and please, if you like this content, this type of content, give some of my other videos a watch and subscribe if you feel inclined to do so. That really helps support and increases the reach of a tiny channel like mine. Thank you guys. I'll see you next time.